I live in a place where wilderness takes over not far from your doorstep. Here in Northwest BC, our lives are intertwined with the animals and nature that call this place home. And I love to explore their habitat. I grew up in BC, and adventuring in our fantastic, rugged, mountainous terrain has been a part of my life. As citizens, we are taught to respect the fragile ecosystem and to protect these animals and nature that we share a home with. I've spent my life learning from and loving the natural environment that surrounds me. Every wildlife encounter is special. But recently, one left me with questions. It was wintertime, and I was standing right here, and I looked out, and there was a wolf. And at first I didn't think it was a wolf. I thought it might be a dog, but it was too big. It was just so tall. And I saw it see me. Like, we made eye contact, and that was a pretty cool moment because it's just it was such a beautiful creature. And I could feel like the eye contact, and I got goosebumps, and I froze for a moment, but my son had been playing at my feet, so and I picked him up, and he got to see it as well, which was amazing. And so we both got to sort of experience that moment, and then the wolf turned, it left my chickens alone. It turned and slinked off into the forest very smoothly and sort of lightly on its feet, really beautifully. And that moment really stuck with me because I knew there was a wolf cull going on in BC, and it really made me wonder, like, what's up with the wolf cull? And so I started doing some reading. First, I just read about wolves. They're intelligent creatures with intricate family systems that pass down generational knowledge. They coexist territorially with other packs. And then I started to look into wolf culls in general. They're not new. There is evidence that humans have hunted wolves up to 10,000 years ago when they first began to pose a threat to livestock. Wolves are recorded as being hunted in Europe as an organized effort as early as the Middle Ages. In France, King Charlemagne was the first to institutionalize wolf hunting around the year 800, when he established the louveterie, a special corps of wolf hunters. Notably, King Edward I, who reigned from 1272 to 1307, ordered the total extermination of all wolves from his kingdom. By the reign of Henry VII, historians seem to agree that wolves were extinct from England. Currently, there are no wolves living in the United Kingdom, but reintroduction has been discussed. Over the next 1,000 years, other countries did similar, with their own wolf hunts, bounties, and culls. Truly, the more you keep reading, the more there is. The wolves were mainly hunted for sport, for their skins, to protect livestock, and in some rare cases to protect humans. Now, in North America, the story is a little different. In Indigenous North America, it seems that active hunting of wolves was rare. However, once colonization began to take hold and livestock was brought over, it became imperative for the newcomers to protect their livestock. And so bounties began and persisted. Wolves have been snared, poisoned, baited, shot, and trapped across North America for the past several hundred years. Here in BC, the total wolf population is estimated at 8,500 wolves. Since 2015, through the Provincial Wolf Management Plan, 1,944 wolves have been killed in BC so far, at a taxpayer cost of over $10 million. Now, the purpose of culling isn't really about protecting livestock anymore. The purpose of the modern cull is to buy time for a declining species, our iconic heritage caribou. Since 2007, at least 6 subpopulations of endangered caribou have been declared extinct. In 2015, the provincial government launched a multi-year wolf kill program, taking out the apex predator to buy time for the prey. During the last century, the number of caribou in BC declined by more than 55%. The government says habitat fragmentation and loss resulting from human-caused disturbances, such as cut blocks, roads, and seismic lines, and the resulting increased predation, has led to these declines. There are fewer than 4,000 southern mountain caribou, a threatened at-risk species, left in BC. And if you're wondering how iconic caribou really are, they are on our money. They're actually the same species as reindeer, Rangifer tarandus. They're called caribou in North America, but in Europe and Asia, they're known as reindeer. So yes, they do pull Santa's sleigh, one of their many iconic, symbolic roles. The government says that for threatened caribou populations, reducing the density of wolves in caribou habitat is the quickest and most effective short-term management tool to reverse declining caribou population trends. The method of culling is mostly aerial gunning from helicopters, with semi-automatic rifles. According to Freedom of Information documents obtained by the CBC, wolves are killed by shooters in helicopters who use a semi-automatic rifle with a red dot scope for quick and accurate acquisition. The Predator Reduction Program was implemented in 2015 and renewed for another 5 years in 2021. In addition, the BC government estimates that some 1,200 wolves are killed annually from sanctioned recreational hunting and trapping. This really made me think about wolves. Aren't they an iconic species as well? I mean, once you start looking around, they're everywhere. In art, stickers, murals, characters in our stories, and icons in our games.
Wolf huffed and puffed and the house went wham.
This creature, whose image and likeness we have appropriated time and time again, we also dispose of when deemed necessary. Hey, do you remember when we saw the wolf?
What wolf?
The wolf that was over there? In the winter?
No.
Out the window?
Oh yeah, now I know.
Do you think it looked like the big bad wolf?
Yeah, I think so.
You think it looked like a bad wolf or a good wolf?
Bad wolf. Or I don't know actually.
I wanted to learn more. Why do we really need caribou? I got in touch with a nearby wildlife biologist working for the BC government who had worked extensively in caribou protection. We exchanged a few emails and he told me I'd have to get my questions cleared in order to interview. Once I sent them in, I didn't hear back. And I followed up, but he never responded. So instead, I met up with an independent wildlife biologist who had spent a large part of her career working with caribou. She didn't want to appear on camera, but she did share some insights with me. She said that in her experience, caribou are essential to the indigenous groups that live near them. She said that yes, wolf culling is brutal and an unfortunately bloody method. She said the caribou themselves require very particular territories and conditions, which makes them difficult to protect. About the cull, she said, it works. She was also confident that the wolves, as a species, would rebound. But not everyone is on board with this wolf cull. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs has been vocally against it, calling the hunting practices inhumane and unethical. Raincoast Conservation, a science-based conservation group, calls the provincial management of grey wolves a poorly informed and exploitation-based model. They say they're committed to creating a model that respects the welfare of wolves and their important role in functioning ecosystems. Pacific Wild is another group that denounced the cull. Pacific Wild actually took the BC government to court over it in 2022. Their claims the government was operating the cull unlawfully were indeed correct, but during the legal proceedings, the BC government went and got the permits they were missing from the federal government. And so the cull was able to continue lawfully. Pacific Wild, however, still maintained that the cull is unethical, questionably legal, and unnecessary. The BC government did do a public consultation process in 2021 before renewing the program. 59% of responses were opposed to the predator reduction program, but they went ahead with it. The local Wildlife Federation was hosting a town hall about BC's wildlife management. I went to see what this group would make of it.
We're seeing science again is taking the forefront in this, and we are seeing caribou increase in numbers where this science-based hunt is taking place. So the science isn't lying. David talked about it a little earlier, I believe, where we're seeing caribou and moose increase where they're reducing predators. So
you guys are support that effort.
We support the science-based hunts. Yeah, absolutely. If the science is dictating that it's working, yeah.
What they were saying in this meeting was that for years, they've seen declines in the numbers of tags offered and the windows in which they can hunt. They are concerned about the future of hunting in BC and about wildlife conservation.
By the time they step in, if you look at some of the herds down the highway here, Revelstoke, you're down to double digits of animals. Yeah. Should they have stepped in a long time ago? When you're down to, a dozen, 2 dozen caribou in an area, single digits down the highway here, what are you doing? Do we want to see them go extinct? No. But somebody should have stepped in a long time ago before they got to that point, because now you're fighting time. A lot of these cases, can they even be saved? It's way too, they've waited too long, the damage is done.
It's easily found on social media that there are many hunters and trappers who take the same attitude towards taking out apex predators. And for hunters, it's open season on wolves for most of the year in BC. Add in the aerial wolf cull, and it's hard to imagine that kind of life for an intelligent animal. For an animal that we know has strong family ties, what kind of psychological damage is this warfare doing to our wolf populations? I wanted to meet a wolf again. Luckily for me, I found some local high-content wolf dog owners whose animals are more wolf than dog. They were willing to let me visit the animals and talk about their experience. These wolf dogs are about 95% wolf, but have been carefully bred in captivity for generations.
They'd rather pee and run than fight.
My name is Jaylene Dennison, and I own a high-content wolf dog, Talon. I used to own another low-content, his name was Tundra, and he lived to be 12 and a half years, and then died due to heart disease, but basically old age. He had a good life. I'm good friends with another owner of another high-content, and we tend to share the both of them because they're very bonded now. They think of each other as mates, and if we go too long without seeing the other, you can tell that they need to see each other, so we'll get them together as frequently as we can.
Doing that fighting and making all that noise.
Mm-hmm.
If they were dogs, I wouldn't be in here when that was happening. Not at all. And I grew up with dogs my whole life.
Their language is totally different. It takes longer to learn than a dog's language too. They just the position of their tail, where their ears are, their eyebrows,
Where their head is.
where their head is.
You have to take all of that in, trying to understand who they are or what they're saying.
Talon learned quite easily how to open the door from the backyard and come in. She can open that door quicker than we can. Nobody would need a doggy door. So now we have to keep, that latch shut. When she wanted something to eat, she would just go over to the bottom drawer of the fridge and pull it open. It took her no time to figure all that out. And then when I'm baking something in the oven, she really loves pork with bone in, but as much as we should be feeding them raw a lot, she does get a little bit of cooked food too, but she does love a big pork roast with bone in. So she would try and open the my oven while things are cooking. So she's very smart. So she was with Czar and didn't know that Tundra had passed. And Tundra had raised her like a puppy. She thought of him as a dad. So when she came home, she didn't get to see him pass and the last days of how sick he was. So all she came home was, it was different. And he was gone. And I believe that she knew that something had happened to him. I took her to where, his last, where he had gone to the bathroom outside just to see if she could smell that he was sick. What happened after that was she howled profusely. She howled so much day and night that our neighbors we actually got a notice from the district because she was howling so much. She was crying. So that's when I had Czar come. Again, I phoned up Bill and said, could I have Czar? We really need Czar. So Bill said, sure. And Czar had actually previously lost his elderly kennel mate too. So we had been sharing Czar a lot anyway, so that he wouldn't feel lonely, because they do. They feel very lonely when they're alone. They can, it's good for them to be alone. There's the lone wolf that goes out. But they're very, very family orientated. They love like none other, and whenever they greet each other, it's a shower of kisses. They'll nibble each other's jaws.
Czar saw the ambulance take Bill away, and then Bill didn't come home for like a week or so. So when he fell and broke his ribs and Czar saw the ambulance take him away again, I think he understood better than Talon or Huon that something's wrong. Bill's hurt. Each time I would go to the hospital and come back, he would greet me, and it would be much more eager, licking the face and that sort of thing, and not letting Talon or Huon come and pet me. It's not now. I've got important things to say. He was asking me to bring Bill home.
Okay. Owl for me, baby.
2 years ago, it would be 2 Novembers ago, is when we decided, Bill and I, since we had these guys, that we wanted to make a difference. We just, the Wolf Cull it's unbelievably cruel, and it's not really making a difference in the caribou depletion. So it's just time to actually bring more people aware that this is happening, because we didn't believe that people even knew that this existed. I don't think that people know that trappers can just take as many as they want, and that the numbers that they say they take for the wolf cull, it's just, those are vague numbers.
See, and that's what people misunderstand.
I think people were very shocked to see that these creatures, they were friendly, they were receptive to being touched, they got to see and feel their fur. They're magnificent to be beside, they're magnificent to learn about.
Oh, belly rub time. Oh, mom's in town.
Only the breeding female and the breeding male will mate together. The rest of the pack does not. Another thing that I find interesting about wolves
I get caught
is
there a lot.
there's no incest with wolves.
Yeah.
What happens though in areas where people have culled the wolf packs out to almost nothing, that's where you will see incest, and that's where the wolves have decided that there's only one way to keep the packs going, is to interbreed. But on normal terms, they will not interbreed.
You're a big boy. You're a big boy.
If you had a dog, it would be different.
In the most recent June 2024 report, the government says that reduction of predator population densities has been shown to be an effective short-term action for recovering threatened caribou herds. Recovery actions aren't just culling. They include predator sterilization, maternal petting, supplemental feeding, and moose reductions as well. All of these actions together have resulted in climbing numbers of caribou. They say reducing wolf abundance allowed caribou populations to grow even in disturbed habitats under contemporary climate change. Recovery actions have increased the abundance of southern mountain caribou by over 1,500 animals, but have also attracted criticism based on views that these approaches are acting only as band-aids in the face of ongoing habitat loss. Really, the ultimate need, agreed upon by government conservationists and scientists alike, seems to be habitat preservation. The animals need their habitat if they're going to survive long term. In a 2024 federal report on caribou recovery across the country, out of BC's 6 caribou ranges, not one has met the identified requirement of 65% undisturbed forest that the caribou need to become self-sustaining. That really made me wonder if wolf reduction would be renewed for another term next time. I wanted to ask our Minister of Lands, Water and Natural Resources about this.
So with Nathan Cullen, I tried to get the interview and I got as far as speaking with a representative who asked me what my questions would be for Nathan. And so I shared that my main question would be, the predator reduction program has been going on for almost a full 2 terms now, and it was intended to be a short-term project. What is the future looking like for wolves and caribou? Unfortunately, I have not received a response since, which is a bit disheartening because I also didn't get the response from the government biologist, which I pursued as well. So twice now, government has listened to my questions and not responded at all to them.
It seems clear to me now that habitat protection and preservation would be the key to no longer having to cull wolves. Which does make sense because, of course, animals need habitats. And yes, humans need expansion too, but at what cost? And is this really balance? Because what kind of an example are we setting for our children? What kind of a world are we leaving for them? And what are we doing to the wolf?